For years, Shinjuku Station was my anchor point in Tokyo, a place where the world surged and churned, never minding me or my small ambitions. I'd wedge myself into the morning crowds, my documentary camera swaddled in a battered canvas bag, navigating the rush with practiced fluidity. But that rush never reached the tiny office where I worked, perched over a ramen shop, surrounded by coworkers who barely pretended to remember my name. The humiliation that finally unmoored me came on a winter morning. The office heater was barely working, and our breath fogged the air as we huddled in our coats, clacking on keyboards. Mr. Okamoto, my boss, kneaded his forehead, sighing over the pile of edits I'd handed in the night before. He read them, then narrowed his eyes. The office was silent save for the steady hum of the space heater. "You know, Murray," he said, not looking up, "you always have your little camera, always dreaming you'll be the next Kurosawa or whatever. But this company doesn't need dreamers, we need workers, people who follow instructions." He pushed the scripts back at me, letting the papers slide off the edge of his desk and flutter to the ground. "So either you wake up and get real or you should find somewhere more appropriate, maybe the circus." Laughter skittered around the office. I bent down to pick up the papers. My hands shook, not from the cold. I kept my head low. I focused on the texture of the carpet, grey and balded from years of footsteps, threaded through with crumbs and the occasional cigarette burn. I will not cry, I told myself. I stacked the pages, pressing my palm flat, fighting the urge to shout, to defend myself, to say yes, I dream, but how else does anything happen? But words knotted at my throat, tight and sour. That humiliation kept echoing as I walked home in the blue dusk. Exhaust fumes and the sting of winter filled my nostrils. When I opened my apartment door, a single room, futon against the wall, camera perched on a milk crate, the silence was crushing. My phone buzzed with a message from my uncle, the one who lived out near Chiba. "Your parents told me you're still wasting time in Tokyo. Why not come home? You could find real work." I lay on the futon and stared at the ceiling. Stories, real ones, had always meant something to me, the lifeblood of my hope, each frame a chance to reach someone. But here I was simply foolish, the lost cousin who never got past childishness. Yet, as I lay there, I thought, if dignity is worth anything, it's in not turning away from your own story. That night I resolved to quit the office. I typed my resignation before dawn, hands trembling when I pressed send. I ignored the pitying looks during my final week, the whispers about my big dream, the snickers when I left with just my camera and a brown bag of instant noodles. Going home to see my family was a mistake. Everyone made that much clear. My mother busied herself in the kitchen and wouldn't meet my eye. At dinner, conversations circled around jobs, promotions, the cousin who'd made head nurse. My father's silence was worse than anything he might have said. Later, as we cleared the table, my aunt muttered, "My friend's son does weddings, maybe he can help you, not that there's a future in that either." I tried to laugh. I tried to eat, but in the bathroom I just stared at the yellowed mirror. My face looked tired and small. The air was heavy with soap and old arguments. Days passed. I sent reel after reel of my old short films to every contact I had. No one replied. Rent edged closer. I did part-time work, moving boxes in a warehouse by the river, sweating through thin gloves as the foreman barked at us. But every spare yen I saved went to film, second-hand tapes, a better lens, train fare to places with stories I wanted to tell. I started small, documenting life under the highways, squatters, delivery drivers, girls who did their makeup on cold concrete, refugees from a dozen countries. I'd buy them bentos and ask for their stories. Some swore at me. Some welcomed me into their worlds, yet no matter how hard I tried, the doors into the larger world of film stayed shut. Producers wouldn't meet with me, grants went to more established names. During that winter, I felt a fissure crack open inside me. Each failure landed like a stone thrown into deep water. I wondered more than once if everyone else was right. I would replay Okamoto's words. This company doesn't need dreamers, but what about me? Did I need one? Sometimes at the riverside, camera slung on my shoulder, I'd sit with my knees drawn up and watch the steam rising from nearby factories. I listened to the lapping waves and tried to recall the stories that had made me want to chase this madness. My grandmother's tales about fleeing the firebombs, my mother giggling at old TV dramas, the films I watched as a child with my head on someone's lap. I would not let go. I owed it to the people I'd filmed, to myself to see it through. Then something broke free in the spring. My documentary about the immigrant families living under the expressway, 3 generations in limbo, accidentally went viral. I posted a clip online showing a girl studying poetry by flashlight in the rain, her voice clear against the drumming thunder. Within days, views soared. A well-known journalist shared it, then a TV news producer inquired about airing the footage. They invited me for an interview. I sat under blinding studio lights, hands sweating, and told the truth. I just wanted their stories to be seen. For a moment, the ridicule and uncertainty of the past faded. I felt justified simply standing there. Things accelerated after that. A French news agency asked me to document post-tsunami survivors in Miyagi. A labor union commissioned a mini-feature on day workers and workplace injuries. My calendar filled up. Money came, never a flood but enough. I hired an assistant, Haruka, a former editor who believed in stories as deeply as I did. For a year, I hardly slept. Dawn found me on the streets trailing the quiet, overlooked lives I'd always loved. Nights were endless cycles of editing, voiceover, subtitling. We filmed battered women helping each other start over, old musicians rediscovering lost songs, children finding laughter amid ruin. You make the unseen visible, Haruka told me one night as we finished a cut at 3 a.m. The sun was rising, the city thrumming awake beyond our shadowed windows. And then, just as suddenly, it stopped being a personal struggle. My film about the Tokyo homeless won a regional award, then screened in European festivals. Letters arrived from viewers who saw their own families in my work. Kids wrote that they wanted to be filmmakers too. The world that had once slammed every door now beckoned. My name, my real full name, appeared in credits and articles. My parents' friends texted them asking, "Is this your child?" A year later, I was invited to premiere my first feature-length documentary at a new urban arts center in Shinjuku. The homecoming felt surreal. I hadn't been back in 2 years, not since the days I'd left humiliated by my boss, doubted by everyone who'd known me. Part of me wanted to refuse. It was safer, maybe, to keep the success away from the people who'd seen me at my lowest. But dignity, real dignity, demanded a full circle, so I accepted. The week before the premiere, my mother called. Her voice trembled. "Your uncle says everyone from work is going," she said. "Even Okamoto." I heard the hesitation. "Are you proud?" "I am," I replied as honestly as I could. The night of the screening, Tokyo glimmered with spring rain under neon. I wore the one good suit I owned, collar stiff and unfamiliar. Haruka fussed over my hair, brushing away lint from my shoulder. Ready. I inhaled the scent of wet pavement, exhaust, yakitori grilling somewhere near. No. But let's go. The arts center was packed, the buzz thicker than any I'd known. Camera crews waited outside, press lanyards swinging as they jockeyed for position. Old co-workers clustered near the coat check, laughing too loudly. I saw Okamoto, same pinched frown though his hair was grayer now. He glanced at me, not quite recognizing me at first. My parents arrived, my mother awkward in a new dress, my father standing ramrod straight. They clung together as if afraid the night would swallow them. My cousins arrived, murmuring with curiosity. The whole community seemed to have come, the neighbors who once asked when I'd grow up, the teacher who'd called me scatterbrained. All the voices that had shaped the climate in which my dream had once suffocated. Inside the auditorium, lights dimmed. My film opened with the hush of morning over the Sumida River, the camera gliding through fog. I heard a gasp, someone recognizing their own neighborhood, their own struggle. Scene after scene flickered by. Workers breaking bread, children singing on the edge of broken concrete, a woman reciting basho between shelter meals. I didn't watch the film, I watched the faces, Okamoto's jaw sagging, my parents stiff with emotion. My mother pressed a tissue to her cheek, my father's hand squeezed her knee. When the credits rolled, I stood, smoothing my jacket with clammy palms. Discussion started, questions from journalists, praise from the arts center director. At last Okamoto rose, he hovered next to the microphone, uncertain. He cleared his throat, faltered. I remember Murai, he worked for me, I never saw this, I never would have thought, he trailed off, eyes glimmering with something like regret. "Congratulations," he said, voice small but real. Then he shuffled back to his seat. The air in the room changed. The people who doubted me now asked for details, advice. The old neighbor patted my arm, whispering, "We always knew you'd be someone." My aunt pressed my hand, sheepish. "Sorry, we didn't understand." Afterwards, the lobby filled with the hum of old enemies trying to become new friends. My mother hugged me, trembling. "I'm so sorry we doubted. You came back better than we could have hoped." My father nodded, blinking suspiciously. He whispered, "Well done, son." In that bright lobby, I realized success had never been about proving them wrong. It was about finding my own voice and refusing to let shame extinguish it. Still, that moment of vindication, seeing their certainty crack and soften, felt good in a way I'd never dared imagine. My pain didn't vanish, but it no longer smothered my dignity. I'd brought my story home, and this time they listened, not because I had forced them, but because the story itself demanded it. That night I walked alone through Shinjuku, the city alive with promise. The crowds parted for me, and for a moment I believed that the stories I carried mattered as much as any sensible job ever could. The hurt of rejection had shaped me, carved out the stubborn core that returned, victorious but still human, to the place I once fled from in shame. The world was wider, the night more forgiving. I looked up, the rain catching neon. For the first time in years, Tokyo felt like home.